In this webinar, we're going to start with some basic information to share. I'll give you a list of categories, the things that you can consider, publicizing for your attorneys. We're also going to show you some examples of different ways that you can organize the information and present it so that it's web-friendly, easy to read, and still gets the information across. And then I'm going to end with a kind of style guide. I imagine that many of you are in a position where you'll be collecting the information from the various attorneys, staff, partners, and really, making it unified so that you can add it to the web. And I do that a lot, and there's little style twerks and tweaks that will drive you absolutely crazy. So I hope that the style guide toward the end there will help you kind of unify everything and create some consistency from bio to bio. So I would argue that your attorney bios are just as important as the homepage of the website. It's really the main area where the user can get a feel for the kind of culture and environment that's at the firm. Studies have shown, a study from Great Jake's law marketing company showed that 56% of website traffic is directed to attorney bios and photos. And if you think about it, it really makes sense. Everyone loves a picture, and when you are talking with an attorney or thinking about hiring them, the attorney bio pages act as a place for you to, sorry, I'm distracted here. They act as a good place for you to really create a bond with your potential clients, whether that's through, the education, maybe you share the same, you went to the same university, or you're into the same things, the same kind of hobbies. It's a good place to create that first impression. So these are some of the categories that sorry, the slide didn't change. These are some of the categories that Paper Street recommends. I wouldn't recommend you use all of these, as there are quite a few of them. We usually recommend probably about 7 to 8 of them. And what you want to do here is choose the categories that you're using. You want to choose ones that are going to emphasize the points that are going to make your attorneys the strongest. So if your attorneys don't do a lot of publications, if they don't speak at a lot of events, then you don't need those sections. If they're really active on social media, absolutely, then throw in their social media. You can pull in their feeds. If you have a lot of videos, if you have a lot of testimonials, you want to choose what's going to make your bio look the strongest. So don't feel like you need to fill in everything here. At an absolute minimum, this is what we would recommend that you include. Contact information, a basic text biography. It could be a few paragraphs or it could be a lot of paragraphs. The education and your bar admissions, where you're admitted to practice. I would say at the minimum, every attorney bio page should have these 4 things. Something I want to call out is the last section, which is the personal information. I'm going to show you some slides in a few minutes that have some really great examples of this. But I think this is a really underutilized area for attorneys. And a lot of law firms I know are uncomfortable because it's a little less traditional. But it's really a great way to form bonds with your clients. And for personal information, I'm talking about things like perhaps, been married for 10 years and have 3 daughters. And on the weekends, you like to ride bikes and climb mountains and you enjoy a good glass of wine. Stuff like that where you can kind of forge a connection between each other. So we're going to look at some examples. These are some approaches I would urge you to consider. All of these styles work for the particular law firm, and they may not be right for yours, but I think that, that they're definitely worth looking at. Only you can really determine the culture of your law firm and kind of dictate the direction that you want the content on these pages to go. But keep in mind that it's open so that you can mold it and make it yours. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I think the most important thing is just to make it fit your law firm, to make it fit your attorneys, to really make them shine. So this first example is an example of a more formal bio. And you can see that they're using a tab system here, and we call that an expand and collapse. And so you're presented with a few paragraphs, and then you have to click to expand the box if you'd like to read more. That's these 2 boxes down here. So speaking to its formality, you'll notice that the use of his name on second reference, they refer to them as Mr. Barron. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but this is obviously a very formal way to refer to your attorneys in the text. You'll also notice that everything is written in full sentences here, which is another tactic that speaks to its formality. And when you click on the expand and collapse boxes, you'll see that even though we break into a bulleted list here, it still starts off with a full and complete sentence. So it's really impeccably organized in that manner. So this next example is a little more whimsical. It's a little more, it's a little different for law firms. You can see that the way the information is presented here reflects a much more personal aspect. They lead off with each person answering a series of questions that are a little different. You can see the questions they're asking, what I love about my work, my hobbies, my interests, people I'd like to meet, a favorite quote, and my favorite is, if I weren't a lawyer, I would be. So while it's kind of playful in the beginning, it also does get the business side done. The paragraph that follows there is talking about her education, her bar admissions, the more formal things you would expect to see in a bio. And you'll also notice that here we're referring to her as first name. You can see that they call her Sarah. So she's not, she's not Mrs. Jones. She's not Attorney Jones. They refer to her on a first name basis, which is much more casual. So this is another example that follows the last, and they've titled this Beyond the Office. I think you might see it more commonly titled Personal or At Home or even Hobbies and Interests. And I think it's important to note here that I don't think the pictures are absolutely necessary. I think for a lot of law firms that might be a stretch. But if you look at the content yourself, if it's not too small, you can see it. He talks about his wife and how he runs on the weekends, and he lists his daughters, and how it's great to have them all in the same place sometimes. And it really develops him as a person and not so much as a lawyer. And I think that this can be very helpful from a marketing standpoint. And so keep in mind that this wasn't the only thing that appeared on this guy's bio. I mean, the other tabs were biography, a written biography, a case studies. They had publications, media, seminars, presentation, news, and then this section Beyond the Office. So it gives you, it's giving you a little bit of everything. It's doing this more personal aspect, but it's also making sure that the business side is done. So what's unique about this particular bio here is they're also using a tab system at the top where you have the different categories lined up. But what's unique about it is the short and sweet information. And that's the reason I chose to show this one. In the overview, in the curriculum, in the expertise, case studies, everything's going to have about that same few hundred words. And so from a usability standpoint, it's really great because it's not overwhelming the reader with a lot of information. It's breaking it up into different sections. And one of the biggest questions we're always asked here is, well, you can see this guy's the founding partner. Of course, he's going to have a lot of information. What if the rest of my staff doesn't have that much information? And that's fine. We don't expect everyone to have, all of these tabs. I would recommend that everybody have at least 3. And I don't even think that they all need to be the same. If you wanted to title them differently and feature different information for each attorney, by all means, I would recommend that. Again, do whatever you have to make the attorney himself or herself, look strong and appear, very as an expert in their field. So this next example is a good example of how just tweaking the text a little bit can really give it a completely different feel. You'll see at the bottom here where it says, say hello and meet my colleagues. This say hello button, it opens up your email, your default email, and it has his email in it. And meet my colleagues is basically a return to the attorney landing page. But just that little tweak really gives this, I think, you'll agree, kind of like a modern and fun feel. It's much like this next example. Short, sweet, and to the point. This is the most formal example I could find of an attorney bio. And you'll see this is very, very simple. It is just a written paragraph. And although personally I would like to see some bullets in there, I think from a usability standpoint, bullets are so much easier read by people today who are just, really just staying on your page for a few seconds, scanning some things, reading the first sentences of paragraphs, and moving on. But for this firm, this was the best option, and it's expertly written, has a lot of information in it, covers everything you would expect to be covered, and it does so in a really classic and traditional way. So I want to mention microsites. A lot of the examples I just showed you actually come from microsites, which is basically just a small customizable website that fits seamlessly in within your larger site, and they're mainly used on attorney bio pages. And it's really a great way to create a flexible and robust marketing platform for your individual attorneys. It's really a big trend right now. So I'm going to give you some domain names if you'd like to check out jimerson.com, and that's JIMERSON Cobb, COBB.com. And then also Searcy Law, that's SEARCY law.com. These are great examples of microsites. And the one thing I would say about these is you really only need to use them if you have a lot of content for your attorneys. We recently worked with a law firm that had over 100 attorneys, and they all had so much content. They all had publications and case studies and seminars and photos and social media, and they had everything. So for us, this option was critical, and it allows you to organize everything and present it all, in a unified manner, and it follows the style of your current site, so it really looks like it belongs there. So as I mentioned, I'm assuming that many of you, are the ones that are tweaking the bios on the pages and asking your colleagues to get the information to you so that you can make the changes on the website. Before you start, like I said, I do this. This is what I do pretty much every day. And if you ask yourself these questions beforehand, it'll really help keep the bios consistent, which is one of the main factors you want to consider that when you're gathering the content. The more consistent it is, the better it's going to look. And I would even venture to say that if it's going to be outdated and it's going to be a mess and it's going to be incomplete, don't even include it. It needs to be updated. It needs to look the same from bio to bio. The consistency is key. So these are some things, when you start gathering content, you realize, oh, geez, like this guy is Mr. Boyd, this guy's Attorney Boyd, this is a colon, this is a comma, and it's going to drive you crazy. So I hope, that these questions, these next few slides will help you, kind of get a hold on that information. So how do you want the attorney referenced, throughout the body? Mr. Boyd is obviously a very formal one. Attorney Boyd, Pete, first name basis. Again, it depends on the culture of your firm. What order do you want the attorneys to appear in? Most attorney pages, they're either going to, start from a drop-down menu, perhaps a landing page, even a list. So you have to decide, are you going to go in alphabetical order? Are you going to go by alphabetical order in first name? Are you going to go alphabetical last name? Or are you going to take more of a hierarchy approach, list the partners first, then counsel? To make those decisions. Who will you feature on the website? You're going to list paralegals, are you going to list your administrative staff, your marketing people, or are you just going to list the partners? A lot of that has to do with the size of the firm. But you want to make those decisions ahead of time so you know who to ask for information. What kind of contact information do you want to share? Are you going to give out the main phone number, or are you going to give out your extensions? Do you want people to have your extensions? What order do you want the categories to appear? And if you're asking for the same information from everyone, then the categories should appear in the same order. If you're allowing them to pick and choose, the categories that they want to provide information for, then obviously the question, is moot to you. Is SEO important? If a search engine is important to you, we would recommend, of course, that you have, about 500 words on the page. So that's something to keep in mind. And just know that usually attorneys will rank high, just for their name and the name of the firm. So they're not pages that need to be optimized, but of course, if SEO is something you're considering, then the more content, the better. So we're going to start with some of the style and formatting. Middle initials. Is it something you want to include? Is that going to drive you crazy if some of your attorneys have middle initials and some of them don't? Phone numbers, fax numbers. You'll see there's a few different styles there for the way that the information is organized. I would pick one and then just make sure it's consistent throughout all of them. Titles. When you start gathering information, everybody thinks that they're more important than they are. And you'll get these titles, and they're all different. They should be the same. So I would recommend make a list. These are all the possible titles at the firm, and just have them highlight which one that they are. That way you get back the exact same wording for every person. It should be obvious what the hierarchy at your firm is. Email. Are you linking your email? Or are you spelling it out? You'll see in the first example, they are linking, hyperlinking the email to that phrase, email Seth. So if you're doing that, you have to consider, well, how are you going to spell email? You're going to add the hyphen. You can take away the hyphen. You're going to use something clever like, contact Seth, or get in touch with us now, or we'd love to hear from you. You have to consider those things. You see the image below. They have spelled out her email. And it's also hyperlinked, but you can visibly see what the email is on the page itself. Practice areas. I would recommend absolutely that if you list the practice areas for the attorneys, that they should match the other pages on your website exactly. So if you list, that John Smith practices in health law, then don't link it to a healthcare law page that should say that he practices in healthcare law. Then they should match identical. This is basic, like sitemap 101. It should be easy for the user to navigate, throughout pages. And if you're linking them to a page, it should be titled exactly what the title of that page is. Representative cases. A lot of attorneys like to provide this information. I would strongly recommend you have a word count. Otherwise, you end up with, a case study that's 3 pages long and another one that's 3 sentences long. And I don't think they should be long. It should be very short, sweet. This was the problem. This is how it was solved, and this was the settlement amount, or this is how it was found. The case names. It's really up to your firm. I don't like to see them, but I know sometimes they're important if it's a landmark case. Just keep in mind that when you include the case names, it's awkward-looking text. It's a lot of capital letters, a lot of dots and periods and underlining. So it can look a little bit awkward, but you can make it look correct with bullets. Just decide if it's something that your firm really needs to include. For simplicity's sake, I would just leave it out. And then office location. If you're from a firm that has multiple offices throughout maybe the state or even the country, you have to decide whether you're going to list the state. And so recently we had a law firm, we were working with a company in Florida where they had offices all throughout the main cities, and we were originally like, well, they're very known for working in Florida, so we don't need them to they don't need to list their office locations, or their states, excuse me. So, saying Tampa was fine, saying Miami was fine. But then as we started editing, we realized, well, they have a location in Hollywood, and when you think Hollywood, if you just see Hollywood written geographically, you don't think Florida. It's a little town down here in Florida. You think California. So we had to go back and we added Florida to the end of all the states. So it's or end of all the cities. So it's just something to be aware of if you have more than one office location. So the biography body, most bios will include some sort of text to open up. And if that's something that you're using, I would recommend that the text doesn't repeat the information below. So use the text to say that you've been considered an expert because of X, Y, and Z, and that you enjoy X, Y, and Z. You've been praised by this person and that person. I wouldn't use that area to say, oh, well, I graduated from the University of Florida, and these are the areas I practice in. Because if that information is provided below, there's really no reason. If it's gonna be pulled out in a different section, don't repeat yourself. No one wants to read that information twice. Your education, I would definitely recommend you list your education. It's one of those categories that I think at the very least you should have. There's a lot of different ways you can list and organize the education. I would just pick one and be consistent. And I'd also mention here, when you see Bachelor of Arts, a lot of times people won't provide you with the actual degree that they got. English, they'll just say, oh, well, I got a BA from the University of Florida. And I think that's fine. I don't think it's a big deal if you leave out the major. It's a style choice. That's really up to you. But a Bachelor of Arts, I think, would be sufficient. I know a lot of people don't like to include it. They don't feel it's relevant to the actual work that they're doing now. So some other considerations, these are very, very particular things, but you'll see the main headers here: bar and court admissions, honors and recognition, and education. Some law firms like to have a colon or a dash after each of those headers, and it's a style choice, and you just want to make sure that you're consistent. So if you are gathering content from many people, you just, if someone includes it and someone doesn't, you just want to make sure whatever you're choosing, that you catch it before it goes live. And that's the same thing with punctuation after the bullet points. Different style guides call for maybe a semicolon or even a period after bullets. Obviously, if the sentence is a full sentence, you need a period. But if you choose to do semicolons, or semicolons, excuse me, it's fine. Again, it's a style choice. Just make sure that it's consistent from bio to bio. So these are some resources that we share with our clients when they have questions. The attorney questionnaire and the attorney bio template. It's basically an outline of a request that you could send to people to start gathering information. And the bio examples on Pinterest, we have a really robust Pinterest. Pete Boyd, the owner of Paper Street, he's always Pinteresting different attorney landing pages. So if you're short on ideas and you need some inspiration, that's a good place to look. That's the direct link. And so I'm going to upload both of these. They're Word documents, the attorney questionnaire and the attorney bio template, as well as the presentation. I'll upload them all to the Paper Street blog early next week. So if you want to check back in a few days, you'll be able to just go ahead and download the questionnaire and the bio template. And I also want to give you my contact information. We have a chat feature. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm also going to give you my email and the Paper Street phone number. This is my favorite kind of work to do, to kind of talk through problems and create solutions and provide advice on this kind of stuff. So I would welcome your questions. I'm more than happy to help. It's a nice break to the mundane editing that I'm usually doing. So you can email me. My email is allison@paperstreet.com. And the phone number here for Paper Street, the main line, is 954-523-2181. So you could just call and ask for Allison or shoot me an email. And like I said, I'll have this up Monday. I'll have it up by Monday. It'll be a blog post on the Paper Street blog in the content section, and I'll have all of these links available so that you can download everything, as well as the presentation, should you want to reference it again. So I'll give you a few minutes in case anyone wants to ask any questions, but I want to thank you for participating. I hope that it was somewhat helpful. Like I said, if I can be any more help, absolutely, please reach out to me. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes for questions, and then we'll log off. Thank you. So I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and log off, and I hope everyone has a great day. Check back on Monday for the resources. Thank you.